Good afternoon, guys. I'm so excited. I was just chilling, checking out what's happening at WGA, Writers Guild Association, Writers Guild of America, excuse me, and they've just announced it, and this is so exciting for me because I am a huge fan of Don't Look Up, and I know a lot of people out there aren't, but nothing makes me happier than to see Don't Look Up walk off with DGA, WGA. I'm so excited I can't even talk. WGA, original screenplay. It won. It has that in the bank. This is huge for this film. And I know it's going to just piss off film Twitter. For whatever reason, a lot of folks don't like this film. I don't know why, because as a COVID tale, this film works in spades. Everything about it really hits. I mean, is it a total grand slam? No, but is it really about right now? When I saw this film a few months ago, it was the first screening of it, and I came out and said, "This thing works. This is a good film." I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a hell of a lot more than Vice. And yet, when people actually got to see it, a few weeks after that when it came out, it was like, what movie did you guys watch? I don't understand how you watch Don't Look Up and don't have at least some fun with it. I'm not saying everything is perfect, but I am essentially going to judge you on your reaction to Don't Look Up. If you hate the movie and you found it no fun, that tells me something about you. I hate to say it, but it does. It tells me that maybe you don't know how to have that much fun. It's perfect for now. And I'll tell you what makes me happy is that WGA goes out and says, by the way, this is our best original screenplay, and beating Licorice Pizza. First of all, Licorice Pizza, not a great film. I will stand by that forever. It is a collection of scenes that is cobbled together. It's not by any means a cohesive film. And I think that as far as Paul Thomas Anderson films go, it is way down there, along with Inherent Vice. When he works in the comedic realm, that's not where his wheelhouse is. If you want to talk about good PTA, you're obviously going to go back to The Master. You're going to go to Magnolia. You're going to go to any number of films. Boogie Nights. I mean, we can go on and on and on. Phantom Thread, which is behind me somewhere here. You're talking about that's where PTA's wheelhouse is. It is not comedy. It is not. Licorice Pizza has moments that are good, but as a cohesive film, it's not there. Let's get into this because I've already gotten some comments. This is what I want. I want to just get into this. Yes, Nicholas, I'm excited. The Academy has chosen chaos. Well, we're going to find out because now WGA has said, by the way, we are going to just throw this film in here. And what happens if Don't Look Up wins Best Picture? I mean, listen, I don't expect it to. Okay, we pretty much know at this point it's going to be Coda. But I love the fact that we have this happen on the Sunday before the Oscars. We have this upset of Don't Look Up, which we expected to do something, and now it has last minute, which is what you want. If you are, excited about this coming up next week, you want this to be unpredictable. You do not want it to be like, I know exactly what's going to happen, A, B, C, D. And I would say right now, without question, that Coda is the film that will win. It has PGA, it has SAG. If you're asking me to pick the things that I'm looking for, if I'm going to bet on a Best Picture, I'm going to pick PGA and I'm going to pick SAG because those are two massive voting bodies in the Academy. And it points to preferential ballot for PGA. So that's important. But look at what Parasite did. It wins SAG. I mean, when you win SAG, it's a massive momentum boost. And that's what it has done here for Coda. When you look at what Coda's been able to do to come really from nowhere several months ago, obviously Apple knows what it's doing here. They have the money to throw at this film, and they have thrown a ton of cash at this thing. It really is about Apple spending power versus Netflix and the power of the dog. But Apple has come to play, and right now, if you were to ask me who's going to win, I would say absolutely I'm going to put my money on Coda. Do I think it's a lock? No, but I would say Coda over Power of the Dog. Okay, that's my guess based on PGA and based on SAG. Those are the two. I know Power of the Dog has BAFTA. I know it has DGA. Jane is going to win director. That's locked. That's over, especially with the knee out of it. So you go ahead and say she has that. But I really feel like we need to have a split either way. I don't want to see, as much as I admire the power of the dog, I would rather see a split in picture director than one film. We have too many great films this year. Look at Dune. I mean, Dune, King Richard. Pick any one of these. Nightmare Alley. These are all films that really need to be acknowledged. And I'm just happy for one thing that they did give a Best Picture nomination to Nightmare Alley, because that is by far one of the best films of 2021. Question again from Nick. Do you think the recent controversial comments made by Campion, by Jane, affected Power of the Dog? Yeah, I mean, listen, there's the Netflix bias too. There's two things there. Obviously, let's start with Jane. What she said at the Critics' Choice did not fly well. You guys know that. It was said, and we knew within seconds that that was not going to go over well, and it didn't. And I think that that was the worst possible timing for that. Really, as you enter Oscar voting, which is underway right now, the Academy is voting up until Tuesday. So right in the heart of when you're getting ready to vote, you have Jane do that. I still think she wins, but that was horrific timing. Netflix knew it. They got out in front of it as much as they could on Monday morning. As you know, she already had the apology out there. But I think that it would have been better for Power of the Dog to obviously win PGA, because that gives her a chance to get in front of people and say, hey, in person, man, I don't know what I was thinking. That was something I thought was going to work, and it didn't work. And we've all been there. We've said things, good Lord, so have I. But you have to get in front of it. But for her, timing-wise, terrible. Netflix bias, I think we're past that. I do, Nick. I think that we're at the point where we are no longer, Netflix, the streamer. I mean, they have come on. When we go back and you look at Roma back in 18, right? So when they came in there with Roma, that was their first real chance, as you guys know, to win Oscar. So I think that now that the years have gone on, as we are now 4 years past Roma, you don't have that bias anymore as much. Do I wish they had a theatrical component? Absolutely. And I hope that at some point they decide they want to do that. They just don't seem to. They throw it out in a few theaters for a week, maybe 2 weeks ahead, but not anything wide, not at AMC or Regal or the major chains. I think Cinemark plays a few of them. But the point is that I don't think that Netflix is really viewed the same way they were 4 years ago. They have changed. I don't think that's what's going to stop Power of the Dog. I think more that what Jane said will hurt more than Netflix. And look, if Coda wins, then you're looking at a streamer winning. So really, doesn't matter if it's Apple or Netflix. Now that said, I do think that a lot of people obviously love Apple products. So when you look at the two, I feel like people have more of a comfort in Apple than in Netflix. If they're going to vote for a film, they feel like Apple is just more in their wheelhouse and this and that. So I understand that. Scott Kernan, come on. You think Brandon's going to win? Listen, I will say this, Scott, is if we're going to go there, I believe that this is the time for that to happen, just based on what happened with Jane. If she doesn't mess up at CCA, Critics' Choice, if they go ahead and get through the night and everything's fantastic, then I think we're not even talking about that. I think he's in play, but I still think at the end of the day, you have to take Campion here. You just have to. So even with what's gone on, I just think that no question Netflix wishes that Power of the Dog had won at PGA so Jane could get up in front of people and say, by the way, I stuck my foot in my mouth, right? And then that's out of the way. But I would say Jane wins. I'm going to put that at least 90+% that she wins. So that means there's at least a 10% play. Best Picture is more, for me, really 50-50, right? It's Coda, Power of the Dog. I still think Belfast can do well on a preferential ballot. And I also think that Don't Look Up here with this WGA. It gets a little bit of momentum. People go, wait a second. The writer said this is a good film, so maybe we'll vote for this. It's something to look at. I think it's still down on my list as far. King Richard has a better shot of winning than Don't Look Up, but I would just love it if Don't Look Up won. That would make me super happy, because I love chaos. As we started with the thing Nick said off the top, they've chosen chaos, and I like that. It is, it is the year of crowd pleasers, and certainly broken stats. I think stats are becoming less and less. We rely on these so many years, but once you get to the preferential ballot, it really throws things out the window, and we've been dealing with it a number of years here. But it's very difficult to predict. As you guys know, it's a super complex process. Obviously, you rank them 1 through 10, and then they make piles, and the number 10, the least votes, gets yanked out, and they take the second place on their ballot and then move them into another pile. See, it's already like your head spinning when you just talk about it. But it still throws the whole thing up in the air much more than it was before we just picked one film. So I think that obviously a crowd pleaser is going to do well. Look at what happened last year. You know, when you go back to the films that did well, Nomadland, I understand not necessarily a crowd pleaser, but it was more of an upper movie. I know it was depressing in a certain regard, but at the end, it's not like some horrific thing. We dealt with enough with COVID that I think they needed at least something that was semi crowd pleasing. And look at even what happened in documentary My Octopus Teacher. No one thought had a shot, and it was the one documentary that wasn't about COVID, that wasn't heavy, and that gets back to voters wanting to see something that makes them happy. And that's why Coda is probably going to do really well and probably win this, is that there's no one that watches Coda that doesn't really admire the film, at least from the way it makes them feel. And ultimately that's how voters go, right? They vote with how they feel. My issue with Coda is this, and it's hard to say on Twitter, so I'm going to say it here. The issue with Coda, and I'm sure when I say this, you guys are going to know, the filmmaking in Coda is very by the numbers, is very movie of the weekish. It is not artistic enough for me. When I want to watch a film, I want to see something that at least has a very high artistic value from a directorial standpoint. And when you don't have that, like Coda doesn't, it just doesn't, okay? In fact, I've had this discussion about Coda before. The last scene, if you've watched Coda recently, the last scene of Coda, when she's in the car, and she's given the sign, right? And she's looking back at her family, and that's where the movie ends, on her eyes. That's not what they do here. That is not what Sean did. She shows the car driving off. These are things that matter, okay? When you're talking about the artistry of a film, these are things that you need to get right. And when I watch Coda, I see things that just aren't there from a filmmaking perspective. When we honor a Best Picture, that's a big component for me. It's a huge component for me in film, when we evaluate film. For me, personally, does the film work emotionally? Absolutely. Is the last scene, with the family and her up there trying out to get into Berkeley, yeah, emotional, right? It might have even sort of teared up the second time I watched it, much more than the first, because the first time I watched it was at home. Shows you again, power of theatrical, much more powerful the second time around. For me, because I watched it at a screening. With all the surprises this award season, wouldn't be surprised if Drive My Car ends up winning Best Picture. I don't know, man. I still am shocked. I'm going to be, I've said this 100 times, I'm saying it again. I'm shocked that Drive My Car got in. I really am. I think that it's a great critics play. I didn't think it would translate and transfer to the Academy as much as it did. And again, Janus Films, tiny little distributor in the grand scheme of these things. I mean, this is small. This is below IFC. When you talk IFC and you talk about like Boyhood, that's a film they got in. It's very hard for IFC to get in. For Janus, shows you how much momentum it had through the Critics Awards. As we know, it won pretty much everything going in, and that helped out tremendously. I don't think Drive My Car wins, but it would be one of those things we've been surprised right and left, but like today with Don't Look Up winning WGA original. Branagh could win. Yeah, that's what I have right now. When I look at Awards Ace, in fact, let me pull it up. I've got Awards Ace up. Let's share the screen, and I will show you what I have right now on Awards Ace when I go to my adapted screenplay, original. Here we go, original. I click on it, and so I'm going to go down. I've got Belfast. So I've got Belfast winning here, even though it did not win BAFTA. Licorice Pizza won BAFTA. Don't Look Up is won by, as you guys know, just a moment ago, WGA. But I still have Belfast there. It won Critics' Choice. It won Golden Globes. And, so at least it has some wins. I think that Belfast is the winner in original. Although, Don't Look Up, I just flipped up to 2. It was at, I believe, 3 or 4. I had it below King Richard because it really felt like King Richard had a shot here. But Licorice Pizza has the BAFTA win. And so I really have it stacked right now. Belfast, Don't Look Up, Licorice Pizza. That's the look there. Let me go here and show you Best Picture rankings that I have right now on Awards Ace. I've got Coda winning with PGA SAG. Obviously has all the other nominations. And then you have Power of the Dog right behind with DGA and BAFTA, obviously Critics' Choice and Golden Globe as well. So you have 4 wins there. But again, if I'm looking for precursors, the ones that I really want to see, I'm going to take PGA and SAG over DGA and BAFTA. I love BAFTA a lot, don't get me wrong. I think that's a huge one too. But I still want to go with PGA. They have a very good track record, and obviously SAG speaks to a lot of actors in the Academy. I mean, the Academy, the largest number of voters in the Academy, actors, right? So that just makes sense that if it wins SAG, that's obviously huge. Can Dune win BP? Could. I mean, it really comes down to that first round. So you're going to go ahead and everybody puts their ballot together and they get the number one votes. So let's say all the films have their number one votes. And then they go through and say which film has the least number of number one votes. That's the film that's first out. That's more than likely, take a guess. I'm going to say it's going to be Nightmare Alley. So Nightmare Alley's out. So if Nightmare Alley's out, then they look at the Nightmare Alley ballots and they look at what they had number two. So Nightmare Alley was one. Number two, let's say, was Dune. So then all those ballots from Nightmare Alley that had Dune number two jump on top of the Dune number one pile. Hopefully that's making sense to you. Again, and no, it's insane. There's actually a couple of good videos out there. I'll try to tweet them out that really explain this in depth. But that's essentially what happens. They take the last place and then they take the second place votes from that ballot that got the last place, the film like Nightmare Alley, and they stack it on top of the other ones over and over and over until they get to this final 50% plus. Let's go back to Nick. And so, yeah, I think, listen, I would love Dune to win. Dune's my favorite movie of the year. When you look at filmmaking, that's what we're trying to do here with Best Picture. It's the best picture. It's the best filmmaking, isn't it? I mean, that's what I want to see. Do you think Coda signifies just how we don't get that type of movie nominated at the Oscars anymore? Yeah, I mean, it's a feel-good film, but it really is, and you guys know this. It's a made-for-TV movie, the way that it's constructed, and I think that we've seen films like this so many times before. I understand it's different, obviously, with the Deaf family, and no question that that is a very big component of why this film has succeeded. It gives them the representation that we don't see very often. We saw it last year with Sound of Metal, which I think, if you're going to look at a film, let's just talk about Sound of Metal and Coda, just as two films dealing with the similar subject, is when you watch Sound of Metal and you see what Darius Marder did with that film, that is filmmaking. Okay, that film is very well directed, and when you look at Coda and those same things, you do not see that as much as you do, nearly as much as Sound of Metal. And that's why, for me, Coda, just if we're talking about acknowledging a film, and filmmaking is a huge part of, obviously, film, then for me, that's why Coda suffers. It's not the screenplay, and it just won WGA, as you guys know, adapted. Don't forget, Power of the Dog and Belfast were not eligible for WGA. They have their own rules. They have their own little thing. If you're not a member of WGA, you can't be eligible, all these things. So they weren't in. So Coda wins, which is still great, because a lot of people don't even know that Belfast and Power of the Dog were ineligible. So, but when it wins, it gets more publicity, right? And now people are talking about Coda more. Hey, it just won WGA, so let's go ahead and vote for it in adapted screenplay, and then that turns into votes for Best Picture. I still think we're looking at Coda. I mean, I just do. Original song more than likely is going to be Encanto. Although I got to say, right now I still have Bond right there. I think I've got it number one, as a matter of fact. I think Encanto's number two. I got to pull that up. Give me 1 second. Let me share the screen. But yeah, it's really just a matter of, if you're going to give it to one thing for one film, then probably would be No Time to Die. It just makes sense. Let me get to it 1 second here. So yeah, for best song, I'm going to go No Time to Die, but I feel like Encanto's coming up. So we will see. I think animated is the one that I really want to talk about. We'll talk about that in 1 second. Let me pull up song, make sure, see where I'm at. I might need to update that. But right now, I do have Bond number one. Actually, you know what? I've got Encanto 3, because I still think that the Beyonce angle with King Richard Be Alive is there. So really, it's between those three. Okay, the other two, Belfast and obviously we know 4 Good Days. As much as I love Diane Warren, she's the sweetest woman in the world, by the way. Met her numerous times. That's not winning. Okay, that's not going to win. So Belfast is right above, and then we're looking at really No Time to Die is my guess is the win, and then we got King Richard and Encanto. I think those are the three that are very clearly the ones in play right now. Let's talk about animated. Give me 1 second, let me pop that up. So right now, everyone's saying it's going to be Encanto, but I do believe you look at the Mitchells versus the Machines, and you look at what Netflix is doing there, pushing this film. You know, it just won Critics' Choice. It won the Annie Awards. So it has those. But Encanto has BAFTA. It has Golden Globes. PGA was Encanto 2. I got to update that. So Right now, again, if you had to, what's going to win? It's going to be Encanto. That said, it is not over. I would say that there's no question that Mitchell's versus the Machines has a shot at this. I think it's absolutely in the mix, and Netflix really wants that to happen. They want Power of the Dog to win this thing for Best Picture, but they really would love to see Mitchell's versus the Machines, a film they picked up from Sony. Remember, it was called Connected. They picked that up from Sony, and they turned around and flipped it, and they had so much success. Look at that Klaus film last year, got an Oscar nomination. Netflix is really pushing animation right now. They really want that to happen, and they know Mitchell's versus the Machines has a shot. But I do think Encanto wins, but it's very close. It's closer than a lot of people think. Luca, yeah, isn't it funny how Luca has not popped up? It's kind of just stayed down. I don't think it is great Pixar. It's better than Turning Red, which is low Pixar. Okay, it is mid to low, mid at best, low is where it really is. And Luca is somewhere in the mid. It is not at the Inside Out level. Anyone who says Inside Out and Turning Red are on the same, even remotely in the same universe as far as quality and impact, no way. Like 0% chance. That's not even, you can't have that discussion. I can't have it. I can have discussions about a lot of things, but I cannot have a discussion about Turning Red being anywhere near the level of Inside Out. We just can't do that. Let's go to, let me pop this out, and we will try this. Power of the Dog winning 1 Oscar with 12 noms. We've seen it happen, though. I mean, look at the Irishman. Irishman was like, we got all these nominations. We got nothing. So Netflix is used to this. Films getting tons of nominations and no wins. Trust me, Netflix doesn't want to get used to this. They don't want to do this. They want to get wins. They want to fill that lobby on Sunset. They want to fill it with Oscars. They have a few, but they want a Best Picture more than anything. They have dumped a ton of cash into this. They've had numerous FYC events. Just one last week, Power of the Dog live score, Johnny Greenwood score, live. They strip the score out of the film, and then an orchestra plays it live. Those events are the best of all the FYC events, and that is what Netflix did. They said, we're going to throw that in there last minute as Critics' Choice voting was going on. Oscars voting is about ready to start. Those are the kind of events that make a huge impact, because when you see that live, it really changes the dynamic of the film. So I think they are absolutely all in on this. You know that. Power of the Dog. I just drove by Netflix on the way back. I was down in Orange County today, drove back up, and I looked up, and right outside Netflix on the billboard, right outside across the street, is Power of the Dog. That is what they are pushing. Obviously, #1 for their Oscars. They know it has a very real shot to win Best Picture, but right now it's still looking like Coda. Let's see what we got here. Paul Thomas Anderson's Licorice Pizza, or I don't know. Oh, wait, no. Licorice Pizza is. Don't get me started on Licorice Pizza again. I'm not a huge fan of that film. I told you, it's a collection of scenes. It's a collection of scenes that are cobbled together, that have a little bit of there is humor early in the film, but as that film drags on, it really doesn't work for me at all. I mean, it's not good PTA. The Phantom Thread, now there we're talking, but of course there's some comedy and there's some laughs. I'm not saying it's a comedy, but there's at least some. Phantom Thread is so much better. I mean, it's not even comparable, right? Phantom Thread versus Licorice Pizza, no comparison. Phantom Thread's better, and then The Master kills all of them. So we go to that. We're talking recent PTA. Inherent Vice, I'm not a fan of either. What's the one film you wanted in Best Picture didn't make the list? That's a great question. I got to go back and think about my favorite films. It was, without question, that should have popped in my head like within 2 seconds. It's this film right here. It's Cyrano. You can sort of see Peter Dinklage there. Cyrano is really a film that was completely undervalued, and it's such a shame that MGM just screwed that film over. MGM had too many films on its docket. They had Licorice Pizza, they had House of Gucci, they had obviously Bond, and also Respect. You had too many films, and they're really just coming back, right? MGM UA was out of business for a while. They came back this year with all these films, and they weren't really ready. Here's what I say about Cyrano, and this is the film that no question should have been in the Best Picture race, is that if that's a Focus Features, it more than likely lands a Best Picture nomination. That's the importance of studio And I think Focus only had Belfast. They could have easily slid Cyrano in there, and you would have had 2 Focus feature films. Focus knows what it's doing. I love that studio. They have some of the best PR people. They are so cool. They had an amazing event for Belfast just a few weeks ago, an Irish event. Irish Bar was at early St. Patrick's Day event. But Focus people are super cool, and that goes a long way towards these events, these FYC events. You want to go to a Focus event because they're going to treat you right. I wish that Cyrano were a Focus feature. If it were, then we'd be talking about very likely a Best Picture nominee. And Dinklage deserves to be there. In fact, I would put Dinklage in over Cumberbatch all day, every day. For me, when I'm evaluating a film and certainly a performance, I'm going to ask, what is the actor or actress, what are they required to do in the role? Okay, how difficult is it? And when I watch Cumberbatch in Power of the Dog, we all know he's got one note to play. Asshole, right? Entire time. Obviously, slightly layered, okay, I get it. But the point is, it's pretty much one note. There's very little in there that he has to do above that. When I watch Dinklage in Cyrano, are you kidding me? He's got to sing, he's got to recite all the lines, the Shakespearean lines. He's got a lot of work ahead of him. And some action scenes. He's got stuff he's got to do. So, again, for me, Dinklage should have been in. And I would actually take Cumberbatch out. In fact, we did Sunset Circle this year, and we didn't have Cumberbatch in. And I'd seen Power of the Dog, and I like him in the role. But again, I have other actors that I'm going to put in ahead of him. Obviously, Will Smith's my favorite in that category. If he wins, that's how it should go. I think it is going to go that way. Will Smith is by far the number one for me. Garfield is right there as well. I'm not as big a fan of Tick, Tick, Boom, but I do think, again, that's a difficult role, right? We're talking about difficulty of role, singing, dancing, all the things, doing a Broadway reenacting, obviously a real person. Those things are all more difficult to me. And in the actress race, it's Kristin Spencer. That's Kristen Stewart. Kristen Stewart and Spencer, I mean, I just saw it the other day, again, and what she has to do there, she's playing Lady Diana, and as you guys know, that's not easy. It's another one of these things that when you're asked to do something that is very difficult, to play someone who everybody knows, and you pull it off, and she does. And that film, by the way, that's the number one film beyond Cyrano. As I continue on this about Best Picture, Spencer should have been a Best Picture, no question. I can't believe that Spencer was not a Best Picture. If you watch this film, and I know you guys have seen it, if you haven't seen it recently, watch it again. If you don't have cinematography and you don't have score for that film in your 5 of those categories, let's just start with that. And then I'll go direction for sure. Those need to be there because technically Spencer is gorgeous. You have to put those things in. You've got to be able to identify what in a film really works, what stands out. And if you can do that, then you extract the elements that are great. So let's just say you didn't love Cyrano that much. I do. I think Joe Wright directed the hell out of that film. Looks gorgeous. Same kind of thing as it's just a beautiful film. But you still could just say, I'm going to take Dinklage out. You have to be able to take Dinklage out of Cyrano and put him in Best Actor. You've got to be able to identify that. As an awards voter, as someone who evaluates films, you need to be able to identify when you see something that is exceptional. And Spencer has plenty of those things, plenty of those qualities. And I start with cinematography, score, beyond Kristen Stewart. You have to get those things in, and it didn't happen. I think Eyes of Tammy Faye is more than likely what it is going to be. I mean, it really, for me right now, it's Chastain. I'll pull it up again. Chastain right now is my number one because she has the wins, as you guys know. So here it is. Pop it up. Let's get to actress. So Best Actress right now is Chastain is in the lead for me because she has just got the win at Critics' Choice, and she has SAG. And she also, so he has those two, has Golden Globes. But if you look down, I had Kidman number one for the longest time because I just feel like it was the default. Because once Kristen Stewart did not get that SAG, you said to yourself, well, SAG's big, huge. You're talking about actors who are voting in the Oscars, so therefore no SAG is a major problem. So I have pushed Stewart back up. I feel like she is surging a little bit. But the problem is Spencer has no other nominations. But either do any of these films, right? So being the Ricardos obviously has a couple, but when you look at like BAFTA, look at this. BAFTA has zero. Zero of these actresses got BAFTA. That's how nutty this award season's been, certainly on the actress side. But I think Jessica Chastain is going to win for Eyes of Tammy Faye. That's my guess right now. Although I still think it's Kidman, Stewart, Coleman's in there because it's Netflix. They've gone crazy. The billboards are everywhere here in LA. You got to trust me. They are really pushing. They think they have a shot with Olivia Colman. So I think any of those four, you got a chance. Penelope Cruz, the win was the nomination for Parallel Mothers. Even though I do admire the film. I don't love Parallel Mothers, but I do like the film. So I have no problem with her being there. Yeah, man, every letter in Cyrano. How about the last scene, Wherever I Fall? Wherever I Fall. If you've not seen Cyrano, you need to watch Cyrano, watch the end. When you get to that scene, everywhere, wherever I fall, that scene is elevated cinema. When you hit it, you know it. You see enough of this stuff that when you all of a sudden are just like, we're in the midst of something great when you watch Wherever I Fall. Conversely, a movie that I just saw this past week, X, when you watch X, the new A24 horror film, as crazy as this sounds, if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. When you get to the landslide sequence, you are experiencing elevated art in cinema. And that's the same thing with Cyrano. When you hit those stratospherically high points, such as what I just said in X, or what I just said, for Cyrano, even every letter, Cyrano has so many moments like that, then you need to value that film highly, because we don't get that often. I saw The Lost City last night. There's no moment in The Lost City that hits those kind of heights. It's fine. It's enjoyable. It's a March movie. It's okay. Brad Pitt's the best part. Problem is he's not in it very long. But you don't get these super duper high moments in films often. So when you do, we need to value those films. Dune had so many of them, right? That's why Dune's #1 for me. Because as a film, I don't care if it's part 1, part 2, whatever it is a film. It works, and Denis is working at a level, a directorial level that is next level, that you cannot replicate. It's not easy to replicate what he did. What he did with that book and brought it to the screen is extremely difficult to accomplish. And we need to remember that when we watch films. That's why when I look at Coda, I say, as much as I like Coda, it makes me feel, it makes me feel good. And I think a lot of people obviously feel the same way. You don't see the filmmaking that makes you go, wow, that's one of those moments. You just don't have one of those. I mean, you have the moment at the end with the family, but I'm saying from a filmmaking perspective. Because when we're picking Best Picture, aren't we picking the best film, which means best filmmaking, which means the art of film? That's my issue with Coda. I like, by the way, cast nicest people in the world. Everyone there at Apple, I love. This is nothing about anybody except I'm talking about the filmmaking. The filmmaking for Coda is just not at the level that I want to see for when I'm voting for Best Picture. Best original score is Dune. There's no question about it, Kevin. That's so easy. That's like a 3-second. We're done. That's it. Dune gets it. Although I will say, Power of the Dog is 2, and Netflix is pushing there. As I said, live score with Johnny Greenwood. He wasn't there, but they did the live score. That helps, but I still think Dune gets it, no question. Yeah, of course, Spencer. Everything, right, Francesco? Is that it's just art. Man, when we see these films, we need to be excited to watch art. Otherwise, we can just go see something like, The Lost City, which is whatever. It's fine, but it's not art. And 3-5, oh God. A 355 sequel, how bad is 355? Not a good film. Jessica Chastain's a hell of an actress. Okay, so Greg Fraser, right now, if you're talking about top cinematographers, he has to be right there at the top, right? Listen, he's going to win for Dune, and he's going to get nominated for Batman. You have to nominate him for the Batman this year, because when you watch what Greg Fraser's able to do, that man is supremely talented with his eye. He has an artistic eye that you cannot teach. He has a talent for framing things. And what he brings to the table, I saw Greg Fraser's work. I remember Let Me In. I've talked about it a million times. Here's 1,000,001. Let Me In, 2010. Greg Fraser, along with Matt Reeves. Vampire remake, Let the Right One In. Watch that film, the opening scene alone, cinematography. You know within microseconds, nanoseconds that you go, that is talent. And Greg Fraser is doing it. He did it with that the mob film, Killing Them Softly, with Brad Pitt. Watch that film again. Elevated cinematography, like next level stuff. So Greg Fraser, he is absolutely, if I see that he's attached to a film, I'm going to see it. Okay, no question about it. And he is in that the absolute top of the elite, right, all the way at the top. And I think that, ultimately, you want to work with those people. So I imagine he's never going to, he's like, Matt Reeves, like, you're not leaving me, Greg Fraser. All these studios are like, no, we'll pay you this much to come shoot our film. And Matt Reeves, please stay for Batman 2, please. But he will. They're a team. I mean, I believe Let Me In was his first film. Greg Fraser. So you're never going to forget that. If you are, an up and coming cinematographer and you're looking for a film, and then Matt Reeves says, "Hey, I like your talent, let's go," then you're going to be loyal to that person forever, I would think. So I imagine he's going to be with him for a while. Yeah, oh yeah, oh my God, one of the best remakes ever. Let Me In. Let Me In's one of the absolute best remakes of a foreign film in the history of those, because I think it's better. I think it's a better film, which is very hard to do when you talk about Let the Right One In. It's everything about that film is, when I saw that, I just knew, I go, I'm in the presence of greatness when you watch Let Me In. And now you see it with the Batman, so no surprise. Let's see here, Dune Part 2 and Batman. Yeah, well, no, because the Batman's going to be Dune Part 2. That's not going to. It's going to take forever. The Batman noms for sure, Nick. That's going to happen. I think he's in, and I think you got to look at production design, right? Score. You've got to look there at score, at Giacchino's score. So you have those two for sure for Batman. I think, even though it's going to be a year, right? Because you're talking about Oscars 2023, a year from now. But I still think Batman gets in for cinematography, production design, and score. Those are the three that it needs to get in for, even though it'll be harder, I think, for score as we go through the year. I feel like score is going to be the hardest. But that said, all of them will not be super easy, because when you try to carry a film in from this time this year to next year, so you got to go through all of next award season, you've got a problem. You know the problem is? It's called momentum, and you don't have any. You have to rebuild it. You have to just build it from ground up and get all the way back up from this point to next year. And it's going to be very difficult to do for Warner Brothers. They're going to put a lot of money into it. I guarantee they're already talking about that. If I was part of the awards team at Warner Brothers, we'd already be talking about that very fact, that we need to be planning our events for the Batman, because we want to push this. Best Picture, probably not going to happen. Okay, I got to look at the whole slate. I frankly am not up to speed yet on Oscars 2023 outside of Killers of the Flower Moon, which is going to be Scorsese. It's Apple. That is your number one awards film next year. That much I know for sure. That is the film that everybody's going to be chasing. But the Batman, I don't see getting into Best Picture. That's going to be it's just going to be almost impossible. If the Batman came out in, let's say, October of this year, we could talk about it. But because it came out in March, you just carrying that momentum all the way through is almost impossible. A film behind me, you can see Rocketman. Paramount messed that whole thing up. There's a great example of a film that came out too early. It came out in May, and they tried to bring Rocketman all the way back through award season. Paramount did its best. They put all these events together. The problem is the movie's old, and people just they are on to other things by the time award season comes around. So Rocketman didn't get there, and as you know, it really should have. If you saw Rocketman, I think it's a great film. I think it's absolutely an awards film, but it didn't get there because it only got, what song? Is that it? I think it was. But Paramount wanted more. It should have been actor for sure. There's not even a question that it should have been actor. Taron should have been in. But again, that's that difficulty of bringing a film all the way through the year. It's almost impossible. It just is. I don't care what the studio is. That's why everything gets dropped in September, October, really October, November. You really want to be hitting that November, December. Coda is an interesting story, as you guys know, because that came out in January at Sundance. And then Apple acquires it, puts it out in, I believe it was August. And in August, that's hard again. That's a very difficult thing to do, to bring it from August all the way through to an Oscars win, a small film that wasn't even theatrical, because at the time we still were up in the air about what was going on with movie theaters. But Apple managed to get it done. Why? Apple. They have money. They can just burn cash, and that's what they did with this. Let's go a couple more, and then we're going to wrap it here. We've been going for, 40. I was just so excited about Don't Look Up. I mean, you got to be kidding. I'm so excited about Don't Look Up. Back to Let Me In. I mean, they're both great, no question about it. I mean, there's no question. And Nick, Dune's coming out in 2023, so we won't get to that till Oscars 2024, and then we'll see what happens. But right now, let's just quick wrap here. Is that Coda is more than likely going to win Best Picture right now. It has WGA today. Don't Look Up all of a sudden jumps in here and makes it interesting in original screenplay. But really, you look at adapted screenplay is where the Oscars is being played. It is between Coda, Power of the Dog, and then Belfast. Those are the three that I have in contention with a preferential ballot. So when you have those three films, and you've got them all right there in adapted. So whatever wins adapted screenplay next Sunday, that's the film that you really want to say that's the one that's going to win Best Picture. I'm not saying it's a 1-to-1 lock, but there's no question you're going to look at that. You have to look at that because that's where all three of those films are in adapted. So Don't Look Up is a super cool win in original, but I mean, I still don't think that film's going to win. Although I'd love nothing more because film Twitter heads would explode. Can't handle it. Chaos. Exactly, Nick. Yeah. Total chaos. Thanks for watching, guys. We're going to wrap this thing. I'm going to go get some dinner. I'm hungry. Thanks for watching. We'll do it again really soon. And like, subscribe, all that stuff. Check out Awards Ace. Update the site tonight. And we'll talk more Oscars throughout the week. We're almost there. The finish line is in sight. I can't wait. I'm excited. I'm just ready to move on to Oscars 2023. Aren't you? All right. We'll talk again soon. Thanks, guys.